We've all been lied to so much by the media and by the politicians that we don't know anymore what to believe, if it's true or not. Like, for instance, the atrocities being done in the Ukraine. First of all, you must understand that there are not just two parties, Russia versus Ukraine, but that there is also a third party of the enemy within, like the Nazi Templar Wagner group here, for instance, who are in fact behind the massacre in Bucha. So Russians and Ukrainians will hate each other and wage war with each other. This third party is the Octagon of the Nazi Templars of pharaonic origin and their base Swaziland in the Alps, who always try to set up peoples against each other so they can have all the power afterwards, just as they've done in all wars. And Mr. Putin and his Wagner group are both part of the Octagon, which I explain in this video here, entitled Black Prince of Prussia and Pharaoh's People's Product, PPP. Here you can see the title in the same channel. So this picture here is taken from the Ukraine war, and those who say, well, but I don't see any blood. Well, the blood has run into the sand. Here, 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 and here. So, first of all, are Russians capable of all the atrocities being shown by the media? Well, the answer is a yes, a plain and affirmative yes. The Ruskies have done the same in Afghanistan and Chechnya, murdering millions. And their specialities are rape, mutilation, looting, and destroying all the houses of the civilians in the middle of winter, just as it is happening now in Bucha, Kiev, Ukraine. And I'll quote for you, Kasanbayev was the single surgeon for almost 80,000 people during the Chechen wars. At one point during the conflict, he performed 67 amputations and 8 brain operations in a 48-hour period. He was also known for treating both Chechen and Russian soldiers. And I read the book in French of this good man about 20 years ago, and Kasanbayev said the worst Russian soldiers were the Kontraktniki, who were real butchers, murdering women and children. Kontraktniki is the Russian word for contractor or mercenaries, like the Wagner group. And the Kontraktniki are typical Octagon of the Nazi Templars. I was in Russia in the 80s during the Cold War, and I can only confirm that this is how the Ruskies are, with some minor exceptions. I was even inside this building here, going in from the back side. There you can see the building. These doors were all closed, and I went in from the back side. I suppose these doors are always closed from this side. And I walked through here from this side, and I went in the middle on the other side. and they never found out who I really was. uh, well, I don't want to pronounce it, this way, but if you want to talk about dumb, well, you can find them here. Let's say that, Just go and see the YouTube channel Stop a Douchebag. How senselessly aggressive and without any sense of justice nor conscience these Ruskies behave. So here you can see them fighting, for no reason at all. It's incredible, if you watch this, and if you see this, so this is the channel name, SADB World, and if the architect attacks, and if you see the senseless violence, of the Ruskies, well, you understand that they're quite capable of all the the horrible things going on in the Ukraine, rape and everything. I mean, you can see it happening in Russia, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, well, you can see the mentality. Well, of course, they're not all bad, but there are very many who are very bad. You can see this on this channel. I mean, these guys filming, they're doing a good job, they're good Russians, I would say, but they're really many, violence and evil people walking around there, which you can see on this channel, And this is happening, this has nothing to do with the Ukraine. So this is like in a neutral perspective by Russians themselves. And then, if they can't win the fight, they start lying and they slip into the victim's role. Just as I've always seen in Swaziland, by the way. And yes, there are Swiss minorities all over Russia. God knows how many there are today. And here, for instance, and if you think it's only the men who are violent, well, you're mistaken. The women are just as violent. This channel is, you can see Russian violence all over. And then they lie, like this woman here, she said her kid had a heart condition. Do you believe her? A children's doctor almost runs over a mother with a child. I showed that in my other video, they just run over children. They don't care. And now they're doing this in the Ukraine. You can violent women. It's incredible. I mean, you would never seen this anywhere else. I think. Yeah, they try to run over people. This guy is escaping, like, this trying to run over a woman with a child here. If you want to see Russian violence, well, go and see this channel and look how they look. These women. They start screaming and they get physical. Look at this, They get really physical. It's not only the man. And then they try to behave like a mafia boss and all this. They pull out guns and baseball bats and knives and it's incredible. So yes, the Ruskies are capable of all the things they are being accused of now in the Ukraine. They are capable. Look at all the fighting. This is now. This is filmed by Russians themselves, by good Russians. Look, guy pulling a gun here where it says POW. They're capable of it. You can see it. This is going on in Russia, Violence for nothing, and then they lie, And the police hardly comes, Nobody cares. And it's so corrupt that many have, they have a lot of fingers inside the police, a lot of mates inside the police. They all try to run over people, and because they just drive over the pavement, you know, the sidewalk. It's chaos. So I understand the pharaohs have enough of these people, you know. And this is what's going to happen, you know. There's going to be a reset on Russia. The aim of the Ukraine war is more Russia than it is the Ukraine. And it will come, you know. The whole world is going to hate them now. So here you can see in the video section of the Stop a Douchebag World how disgustingly violent the Ruskies behave. See here, it's all, they come with their big cars, you know, it's going too good for them. So they need some economic sanctions and a reset. I totally agree with Pharaoh on this one, eh? Look, they're all fighting over nothing and here fighting. And they always aggress the weaker ones. I mean, that's real Rusky, eh? They pull guns and they attack the weak ones, like children, and yeah, you see fighting. Look how aggressive they look. You know, look at that. It's all fighting and macho stuff here. And you know, if you punch them one time, you know, they're down and they don't get up anymore. You know. Because these guys who are filming, they're like wrestlers and real fighters, but they don't really go into it, you know. They behave well, you know, the ones filming. They're young kids, and look, it's all aggressions and fighting. They try, you know, the Russians try to run these kids over, and that's how they behave. They think they're just kids, you know, but these kids are real good wrestlers. And they behave, you know, they don't end up in violence, and yeah, this one is even pulling a knife here. The police comes, well, they don't do anything here. The police, they keep on hitting the police. You know, this one here, down here, the police are standing there, and he keeps on hitting, and they don't care. And look how aggressive the women are. Look at this one here. Look at the girlie here. And here's another girlie. They just attack the man, you know. They know that when the man, they retaliate, you know, they got everything on everybody on their necks, you know. You know, they even take, this one even takes the child out, you know, as a, you know, to slip into the victim's role. Like this guy's extremely aggressive, this one, over nothing. That's, yeah, another fight. This is Russia, you know. They even attack a guy here with a crutch. The Ruskies, they like to attack the weak and the defenseless. You can see that here, like kids. Yeah, another attack here. And they all pretend, they all come with their big Mercedes, their big gangster cars, and it's a mafia-led country, and they need a reset. And I say, go ahead, Pharaoh, go ahead, give them a bloody reset, eh? It's enough. You gave them everything, you know. They have everything: McDonald's and big Mercedes and Volkswagen, American cars, and what they do, you know, they behave like monkeys. Look at this one here. They behave like monkeys, especially the women. Look at them. It says woman. Well, we know what that is. It's a pink list killer, probably. And they know, you know, the women, they know that as a man you can't retaliate, because the women can hit a man. That's what Europe is like. And if you're a man, he cannot retaliate. Here, look, another fight here. And the kids here, they're just defending. Here, another fight, you know, just a lot of aggressive energy for nothing. Over nothing, really. Yeah, cops coming. Here's a fight. Women very aggressive. So this is Russian TV. Real life. You know. Yeah, fights here, fights here. I mean, go ahead, Pharaoh. This time I agree with you. Give him a reset. You know, just squeeze them down, and you know they've gotten too arrogant. You look at this woman here, aggressing a man, and he knows he can't do anything back. You know, he goes to prison. Yeah, again, you know, these kids are okay. Look at the big one, attacking him, you know, for over nothing. And these women aggressive. They say, "Oh, well, I've got connection in the KGB, like, and all." Every time, hear this too. It's such an aggressive territory Russia is. You know, the woman attacking the guys here. This one, oh, you know, look at my clothes. You know, I've got connections in the parliament. I know Mr. Putin. You know, this is yes. They hit the young guys here. They don't do anything back. Give them a reset. Finish these Russians. Finish it. You know, there goes Pharaoh. You go ahead. Yeah. This is real life TV, and there are very few Russians who stand up. Very few. So Pharaoh has to do it himself. The NATO has to do it, and I totally agree with it. I totally agree. And it goes on and it goes on. You know, it's really sickening. So go and have a look if you want to know if it's real. You know, the atrocities the Russians are doing on Ukrainian children and women, and it is true. If you've seen this here, Stop a Douchebag World, you know it's true. They can do it. They love violence over there, apparently. Well, they love violence. Well, give them violence, hey? Go ahead, Pharaoh, give them violence. I mean, they're begging for it, hey? They're really begging for it. And the whole world hates them now. So go ahead, world. Here are the proofs, people. These are the proofs what they're capable of, you know. I mean, here they still sort of, well, they don't give a damn about any laws in Russia, you know, but they're still somehow tied to the laws and the consequences of their actions. But you can see if you give these guys, you know, in a Ukrainian town with all the weapons and you put them there, these Russian soldiers, you know, they just go berserk and well, like it's happening now. This is the mentality. I think this is really shocking. It's a really shocking YouTube channel. These are things you see nowhere else in the world, really. Ruskies did it, people. They did it, it's true. But it's not Russia, Ukraine in this war. There's the enemy within, in between, who puts a lot of oil on the fire. I understand that Pharaoh has enough of these Ruskies who need to be re-educated with a reset afterwards, as humanity is Pharaoh's bred race, human livestock. So I agree with you, Pharaohs. Just go and have a reset on the Ruskies. So Pharaoh had their Teutonic Putin send Rusky soldiers into the Ukraine during the coldest part of winter in order to delete them without proper logistics. I'll read it for you. Why Russia's logistics failed. Well, I'm explaining that to you. It was deliberate and it is a trap. It has to do with a reset. Not enough food, being hungry all the time. I'll read it for you here. Russian soldiers loot Ukrainian shops. Frozen toes, frozen bodies, shivering the whole time, with old-fashioned conventional weapons and World War II era tanks against NATO's high-tech smart weapons. So here you see the drones and the high-tech portable missile launchers of NATO by the English and Americans and all this. And these are really old-fashioned tanks, you know, World War II era almost. I noticed the cannons are not even shock absorbed, you know. They are absolutely have no satellite support like an Abrams tank for the shelling. You know, like an Abrams tank, you know, every shelling it's a bullseye, you know, because it's all satellite linked. These are absolutely not. I have no chance at all. This is all scrapyard stuff. There's no more place in a modern warfare. The Russian soldiers are just cannon fodder, and they know it now, but it's too late. They were trapped into it because Mr. Putin and his pals of the World Economic Forum in Swaziland, they wanted a reset, and there's no way back either. So they say it, we are cannon fodder. They know it. So it's the lie by Pharaoh that wins over all entire armies. You know, they believed Mr. Putin, but he lied, of course. It's Vladi the liar, and he's part of the Teutonic Knights. They're trapped into Pharaoh's lies, and with firing squads behind the Rusky soldiers' backs to eliminate the deserters. Thus, Rusky soldiers trapped by the Octagon, knowing some liters of looted vodka would do the rest under these conditions and lead to terrible atrocities on the local population, which was exactly what Pharaoh wanted. And as you know now through my videos, that this guy was Swiss. He wasn't ethnic, he was a Swiss American general and president, and of course a member of the Swiss Octagon, going for all key positions. And he said, "You will not find it difficult to prove that battles, campaigns, and even wars have been won or lost primarily because of logistics." Well, yeah, it says in military officers' academies that with a good army you can win the battle, but with good logistics you win the war. Armies win battles, but logistics wins wars. To which I'd like to add one more thing, which is even more important, and that's the signaler call, the radio man, scouts gathering intel from the air to know where the enemy is, how many there are, direction of movement, and what they're doing. This is even more important than the logistics. The intel passed on through the signaler corps has destroyed armies 100 times the size of your own. It's really not hard to understand where the Ukrainians get all their intel from. And the flash in the US Army INSCOM logo is the symbol for the signaler corps, incorporated into the US Army Intelligence and Security Command. So, without the US Signaler Corps, the Ukrainians could never have destroyed so much Rusky armor in such a miraculous way. So here is the flash in the middle of the Army Intelligence and Security Command, the INSCOM. This is the flash of the signaler corps, because with the electronics everything has become more complicated, and there's not just one signaler corps anymore. It's integrated in the whole thing, together with the intelligence gathering and all that. This is the Sphinx, of course, the Army Intelligence. It's all pharaonic, eh? This looks like to be a aristocratic lord with his wig. And this, of course, is the 7 arrows of the Statue of Liberty, which are the concept of 3 and the concept of 4, which I've already explained to you. And this comes from the New World Order horizontal rule, the Republican rule, from the liberté, fraternité, égalité. The Statue of Liberty. It's from Liberté, Fraternité, Égalité. From the French Revolution, and which was given by the French Freemasons to their biggest horizontal rule ever made in America. And this is the torch of the Statue of Liberty, of course. Here's a key, like in the Vatican, the logo of the Vatican and the Swiss banks, the Swiss UBS bank. It's full, and here you got the torch again of the Statue of Liberty. And here again, the 2 keys here of the Vatican. I think that this is exactly the Vatican, almost the Vatican logo. Here it says 7075 instead of 76. That's interesting, eh? Of course, this is the Vesica Pisces, the 2 forming an oval in the middle. The 2 rings here, that means we are a chain, like a chain of command, or an organization, like in where we go one, we go all. This is by the Knights Templars. One for all and all for one. That's what it means. They are very, very organized, and they stand all behind each other. Whereas humanity, it's all everybody for himself. Here again is the flashes of the signaler call, which is called, I think this is it's English signaler call. In America, it's just called signal call. But I prefer the name signaler call. Mr. Putin, of course, knows this, where the Ukrainians get their air reconnaissance from the NSA and the US Army Intelligence Command. But as he's part of the Teutonic Octagon, he plays Major League with his Octagon pals commanding the US INSCOM, thus deliberately betraying the Russian people for the New World Order goals. So the miraculous victories by the Ukrainians over this Russian, all-powerful, scary Russian army is due to the US signaler call. Simple as that. Why do you think Vladdy was best pals with Donald, huh? It seems like Putin saying, "Hey, you see that young chick behind? That's my wife, and she could be my granddaughter." Trump replying, "Yeah, that's why I always got them from Eastern Europe as well. See what you mean, pal?" Gangsters with young girls, pyramids, and Egyptian palm trees, where they all come from. Typical pharaonic nobility. Just look at Trump's eyes. See how they're moving? Right, left, right. And yes, also atrocities committed against the ethnic Russians in Ukraine's Donbas region, which you can witness in the channel of Patrick Lancaster here. And especially these videos here are quite bloody and filmed right after the impact of cluster bombs. So here you can see that here, massive cluster bomb. Quite bloody videos. Here's some more about cluster bombs. Here, cluster bombs. I see a lot of bloody people, eh? People are bleeding, I mean. I had a lot of dead bodies everywhere. Well, you can already see them here. So, also in the Donbas region, the people are being shelled. But who can really tell who shot the bomb or launched the missile, as it's all Russian-made bombs and missiles anyway, and launched from a 30-kilometer distance or so. Therefore, I tell you that the enemy within of Putin's Nazi Templar Teutonic Knights and his Wagner boys did it to spark the hatred between nations, which has always been the objective of the Third Party, also called the Third Reich. The Third Party, you see, das Dritte Reich of the enemy within and Octagon of the Knights Templars. So the Third Party, or the Third Reich, their aim is to have the other two parties fight each other, like two nations, two peoples, two religions, two races, or whatever. This is what Pharaoh's aristocracy, this is their strategy, which they have always been following. And it goes on and it goes on. So this is interesting. This is a website to stop Wagner Group and its crimes. As I already told you, Wagner, it's a reference to the Nazis, which I've shown you in my film about the Black Prince in the same channel. So you can read it here. I like this website. I mean, they're doing something, apparently. I hope so. I've got a good feeling about this. And isn't this Chinese, this thing here, Vion? Wion? Interesting. You know, the Chinese are far more peaceful, you know, than I think the Russians are behind it. It's all Julie Vitskovskaya. Some good Russians probably had to flee the country, eh? As they speak, or it must be somebody who speaks, understands Cyrillic and Russian language. Otherwise, you can't find all these things. And pictures like this. This is what the Wagner Group, what they're doing. It says Wagner Group or how to cure plague with cancer. It's a mafia. Oh, it's white supremacism, Nazi tattoos, mafia-style business model. So they got Nazi tattoos, and Mr. Putin, he's shouting hysterically, "Oh, the Nazis, the Ukrainians are the Nazis." I mean, look at this. Wakey, wakey, people. The Nazis are inside. It's the Third Reich, the Third Party. Yeah, they do false flag operations, you know, like the shelling in the Donbass. They're behind it. They're behind it. And also in Bucha, you know, the atrocities. It gets all on the back of simple Russian soldiers who didn't do it. You know, they did it. They're doing it all over. You know, look how they're performing, these guys, you know, with swastikas and all this. I told you, Mr. Putin is a Teutonic Knight. You know? It's all Knights Templars. It's Octagon. So this is very interesting. I'll see if I can contact them. So, people, these are the real Nazis, and these are the ones who are behind the shelling, both in the Donbass region, because nobody knows who really did it. I mean, You can't tell me that, eh? There's nobody who can really say like, oh, it's like 30 30 miles away, when the missiles are being launched. Come on, you can't know it. It's just speculations. And the Wagner Group is apparently also behind the Bucha massacres and this is Octagon. This is Templar stuff. They have no human feelings, and they've been doing this for at least 1,000 years in the form of the Octagon. And of course, before that, we had the Romans and the pharaohs, and which is the same group or the same origins. But this Octagon has been terrorizing humanity since 1,000 years, and their base is Switzerland. So watch my video, The Swiss Beast, Home of the Devil. Looking at Pharaoh's politicians, the best way for a coward and a liar to beat his enemies or to defeat humanity is to have the enemies fight each other. I quote, "When two fight, the third one takes advantage." And then you take over control. You see, the two dogs here are fighting, the dogs of war, Ukraine, Russia, and the third one takes everything. He's quietly eating. This is what's happening. When everyone is dead and exhausted, you take the women, enslave the children, and install a ruling system to control the land and its people. Here you see, these two are fighting, 1 and 2. Russia, number 1, Ukraine, number 2. They're fighting. And here's 3. Number 3, he takes it all. He takes all the treasures, all the money, all the wealth, all the power, all the women. 3, because it's the Third Reich, like Putin with his Wagner group, killing both Ukrainians and Russians. So these ones continue to fight each other. They have already done the same thing during the Second World War. And the Nazis won the war. They're still there. We can see it. It's Wagner, it's Putin. And they're all over. They're having control over the US, the Ukraine, Europe, the whole world. And they always use the same pharaonic technique. Number 3, the Third Reich. Mr. Hitler, he didn't die in 1945. Now he's dead. But it's still going on, the Paperclip organization or the Paperclip project. They all came into the US, all the Nazis. And Russia was the same thing. The Nazis went to the US and to Russia. Same thing. Nazis won the war. Number 3, the Third Reich. They win it all. This is the true nature of the Third Reich, Third Empire, and enemy within, who have the other empires or groups of people fight each other. The Third Reich is back now, with their old Nazi names like Wagner, who was Hitler's favorite Nazi composer, who lived in Switzerland, the base of the Nazi Templars. Funny name, huh? For a Russian fighting force, reminding you that the Nazis were the biggest enemy of the Russian people, who butchered about 25 million Russian men, women, and children. Putin is a Nazi and an enemy of the Russian people. The problem is that humanity has been reset and followed up by a preset with a fixed binary system in their heads, which only allows them to see the Ukraine war as a soccer match between two parties in a binary system, and only saying Putin is the bad Nazi versus saying that only Zelensky is the bad Nazi. Humanity is trapped into the yin-yang preset of dualistic awareness, also called the soccer match dilemma, and its conception of only two parties. There are, in fact, three parties: the people, Putin, and Zelensky. And both are Nazis, folks. Both Putin and Zelensky. And they're waging a war against the Ukrainian and the Russian people, framed into the hooliganism of the Freemason Ordo Abkau. This is why the Freemasons have the black and white binary system in their checkerboard configuration, because they know that these are the rules and conditions of the playground here on Earth. And it is, in fact, a soccer field where two parties are playing, the blacks against the whites, Putin against Zelensky, with the spectator Masons here watching the soccer game, and the people bleed. That's why they're red around it. And this is a throne. Here you can see, of course, the square and compass. The circles here stand for the compass, all these little circles. Here is a square for the square and compass, like here. These are, of course, the pillars of Yashin and Boaz, who were standing at the temple of Pharaoh Solomon. And Solomon, as it says in the Bible, he was married with the daughter of Pharaoh. It was all about pharaohs, the whole book. And you see this a lot at the entrance of a lot of houses. You know, with the ball on top of the entrance, here's the gate like. And the ball means the world domination, which they are trying to achieve and already have, of course. So that means somebody living here, you know, it belongs to the gang. That means if there is a war or an army passing by, don't kill the people here, don't destroy the house. You can rape all the Europeans next door, that's no problem. And I filmed it in my film, the Pharaoh Show. Well, this is probably another famous Freemason. And so here they're all sitting here, right? So the masters on their elevated level, sitting on their thrones, looking down at humanity and the two-dimensional black and white binary playground, who will never understand what's really happening above in the 3D, where the masters sit and who decide over the binary playground in which humanity is imprisoned, unable to pierce through until the higher levels, deliberately being kept within the gates of the binary system, the invisible prison guards in our own minds and souls. For our master, pharaohs here, it's like watching a soccer game with humanity bleeding out in the middle on the binary playgrounds. And with this binary system, the evil ones have infected the human spirit somewhere in between the source of souls and the arrival on planet Earth. Watch this impressive interview in this video here to understand the concept of the source of souls. Here's the title: The Source of Souls, Well of Life and Place of the Book of Life, also in the channel Gure, the same channel. And I tell you, it's only the brave ones amongst you who will be freed from the binary shackles keeping you prisoner inside Pharaoh's binary zoo. For the obedient coward sheeple, there will be eternal damnation. It is, in fact, entirely the other way around than those Oriental holy books have infected your belief system with. The binary system, it's just in your mind. Be brave and fight back, and it will melt like ice in the sunlight. Or do you want to end like this here? Thank God, me, homie Ross, I've got a screw loose in my head that loosened me from the preset binary system, being able to think outside the matrix, enabling me to have run away from the yin-yang soccer field hooliganism of the Ordo Apgau. You all know that a computer runs on a binary system, right? It uses only zeros and ones that function like on and off. How does binary work? Binary code works by representing symbols in a way that computers can process and understand. IT is done by breaking the symbols into a numeral system of 2 digits, 1 and 0. Apparently, the human brain also works like this, according to many experts. And this is what an expert on computers says about it. I don't think there's anything unique about human intelligence. All the neurons in the brain that make up perceptions and emotions operate in a binary fashion. Bill Gates. The only problem is, Bill, I think your binary system has a little problem with spelling. Intelligence without the G, neurons with the U and the E turned around. Hey, Bill? Maybe that's why mankind has been able to invent the computer. Because it works in a similar way. That's why most people have a soccer head or a soccer ball head, only identifying the binary system of a football game with one team playing the other team, only 2 teams. And one can see on the image of the football haircut how they identify with a concept they can barely grasp. But there are exceptions without these limitations within the brain functions, but who are unable to wake up the binary soccer heads. Impossible. Look, even the ball is binary, with black and white spots on it. It's that much the soccer heads love the binary system, because that's all they understand. Here, in this video on Brighteon, you can see the pervert Zelensky in ladies' underwear. which I don't want to show you the picture here in my clean channel, because I don't even want to see the Gente Bender here in my still virgin channel. So here you can see this is Brighteon. Here you can do the search. So this is the title here. You just punch the title here and put it in the search bar here on Brighteon, which is a video platform without censorship, or at least, you know, for the normal things there's no censorship. So here's the title once again, and here is the name of the channel. You can also punch that in there. And there are also videos how he plays the piano without using his hands and with his trousers down, so maybe you understand what I mean. And so you just put in the here in the search bar here, search, you put piano Zelensky and it will pop up. And here, still on the Brighteon.com video platform, when you punch in Ukraine war footage in the search bar. Oh, look, there's me. Oh, that's very well. Thank you. You did it well. Somebody re-uploaded my video, I just saw, which is a good thing. So please, everybody, download and re-upload my videos all over, because one of these days they're going to disappear in the censorship video platform where I'm at now. And there's also this video here, Ukraine War Crimes by the Deplorable Preacher, where you see some real hardcore executions on surrendering soldiers, you know, like being castrated by a AK shot in the testicles, and kneecapping, and the real deal, you know, things you'll never see on the censorship platform where I'm at now. So go and have a look. So it's you know, we have a binary system in our heads, you know, and people can't think out of the matrix, and which is the soccer game dilemma. There are not just two parties. This guy here, well, I'm not going to tell you his name here because it's probably my video gets censored if I do. Well, he doesn't really think outside of the matrix. You know, he's also in the binary system, and he's saying the Putin is good and the Ukrainian Zelensky is bad, and which is the binary system. It's the yin yang conception which we have in our heads, and we have to loosen up some screws, you know, and reset our own system. You know, and it really is like this. It really is. So, but the images are interesting. You know, it reminds me of the things I saw in my wars in Southern Africa. Why do you think Putin has let this picture be published with a black cross on his forehead? Putin, the man who controls the media in Russia, why did he want to present himself with a black cross on his forehead? Well, because the black cross on his head represents the black cross of the Teutonic Knights, thus giving away to all the initiates in the world his allegiance to the Nazi Templars. It was on purpose he showed this. Here you can see Kadyrov, the Chechnyan warlord, fighting at the side of Mr. Putin, the Teutonic Putin, and he has an octagon of the Knights Templars, the Nazi Templars, on his cap, meaning that this organization is by the same Nazi Templars as Mr. Putin is a Teutonic Knight. And maybe those who say, well, no, the octagon is Islamic. So we might ask ourselves, is Islam maybe also an invention by the Knights Templars, as there was in fact several Knights Templar Arabic orders, like Salahuddin or Saladin, he was part of. So how come there are these Kadyrovsky Chechens fighting for the Russians and fighting for the Chechen enemy? After the genocide, the Ruskies and their Mr. Putin have executed on the Chechen people during the two bloody Chechen wars that were in fact no wars at all, but mere bloody terror campaigns by the Rusky army on mostly unarmed civilians. So here you see the first Chechen war, 100,000 Chechens killed, and the second Chechen war was even worse, with far many more people murdered, and Mr. Putin was responsible for this all. So how is it possible that the Kadyrovsky Chechens are fighting for Mr. Putin now? There's something very suspicious in the air, something very fishy and rotten going on. So here he is again, Kadyrov, a pal of Mr. Putin, and again with an octagon symbol here, which is octagonal. And I know about symbols, I can promise you that, and I know these symbols, it is Nazi Templar. And the war he's leading now in Ukraine, it is Nazi Templar stuff, and it's against the peoples of this earth, innocent people being slaughtered by these guys here, the Nazi Templars. And there is also a circle in here, you know, in the middle of the crescent moon here, which stands for the compass. And here I see a square. So it does say square and compass. And there is the octagon. And the Freemasons, the square and compass, they come out of the octagon of the Knights Templars. And this is why he is pals with Mr. Putin. This guy is an enemy of the Chechen people. The Kadyrovsky are typical Lebensborn, where just as these German children, Chechen children have been kidnapped and abducted to be trained as perfect, obedient, brainwashed soldiers by and for the octagon of the Nazi Templars from the Alps, as you can see here, the Alps, which we can see happening again in the Ukraine, where boys are kidnapped to be never seen again, and girls are raped and tortured. Yeah, I read it for you. Russian forces kidnapped 2,389 children from Donetsk and Luhansk, U.S. Embassy says. The U.S. Embassy in Kiev cited Ukraine's foreign ministry as saying 2,389 Ukrainian children have been illegally removed from the Russian-controlled territories of Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast and taken to Russia. You don't believe it? Well, I believe it. And you know why? Because they're doing this again and again and again. These Nazi Templars. This is the Lebensborn program. It's like in this American film Soldier from 1998. Here, I read you the plot. Here you can see the image. It's with Kurt Russell. Interesting video, because it's the reality, as in many movies. Here's the plot. In 1996, so a part of a new military training program, orphaned infants are selected at birth and raised as highly disciplined soldiers dedicated to a holy military routine. They are trained to be ruthless, obedient killers without any moral code of conduct. You can see what it is. Code of conduct is a set of rules outlining the norms, rules and responsibility or proper practices of an individual, party or an organization. And any deemed physically or mentally unworthy are executed. Survivors of the training program are turned into emotionless, dedicated fighting machines with no exposure to or understanding of the outside world. Well, when you read this, when you hear this, I see the Kadyrovsky, because also in Chechnya, during this Chechen wars, Russian terror, many children have just vanished and disappeared. They were kidnapped by the Russians. And now, you know, like 20 years later or 30 years later, we got this these terrible Kadyrovsky machines, you know, like emotionless. Yeah, it says emotionless, dedicated fighting machines. The same with these Wagner boys. You know, they make soldiers. You know, I mean, that's what they do, and this is exactly what's happening today. As many Hollywood movies, it's like a preview. You know what's going to happen or what they're going to do with us. Yeah. Well, this is exactly what we are seeing today with those Kadyrovtsi, who are hated by real Muslims and by real Chechens as well. So this is Kadyrovsky with his octagon here, Knights Templars, right? This is the sun hieroglyph, which I filmed you in the Pharaoh show and many other. And here the circle stands for the compass. So where's the square? Well, here it is. It's a big square here. So it says square and compass with another sun hieroglyph in it. Here's the concept of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's Masonic. Here in this picture here, you can see it even better that it is the sun hieroglyph, as I filmed it in many videos, filming it on buildings horizontally, vertically. Well, I mean, what is this symbol doing here? Has it got anything to do with Islam or something? And look, it's like Adolf. He seems to be saying Heil, you know? Hitler and the Nazis did this with the Lebensborn and the Hitler Youth. You know, the Hitler Youth in 1933. And I read it for you. How successful was the Hitler Youth at indoctrinating children? Well, we all know this by now. They were very successful. I'll let you read the rest yourself. Yeah, you can see Mr. Hitler and the Hitler Youth. So this is the true face of Mr. Hitler, sending children into the war. The boy here must be like 10 years old. This is Mr. Hitler. This is what he did. Another liar like Putin, and children disappearing in the Ukraine. Nazis have always been doing this. Wakey, wakey, people. The Brits did the same with the Boy Scouts. I'll read it for you. February 22nd, 1857. the birth in Paddington of Sir Robert Baden-Powell, national hero of the siege of Mafeking during the Boer War. His innovative approach to the situation kept morale high, and his experiences led to the founding of the Boy Scouts, to make perfect little obedient soldiers. And here, fleur de lis of the nobility, all these nobilities, a Swiss cross on his chest and everything. Well, there are the famous child soldiers, or rather infamous child soldiers of Africa. The Islamic State did it, and they're still doing it. These type of phrases, I can't pronounce it for you because then the machine will recognize it and they will take off my video. The same sort of things the Kadyrovtsi guys were being taught, the same as the Hitler Youth. They also had like similar phrases being taught, and it's always the same, So now children disappearing in the Ukraine, and well, they're gonna be taught these kind of phrases, for the next wars. The Romans did the same thing, taking away little children of the European tribes in order to raise them as legionnaires, who then got fed by the beast, so to speak, and making the Swiss god out of them in Rome. Pharaoh has always been doing this, making perfect little soldiers by making them and building these children from start. Like the Swiss Pharaoh here is taking away children from their parents to make obedient little Swiss banksters out of them. On the NATO side, we also have an enormous conflict of interest with the Western military industrial complex earning loads of war money. War is business. With all those high-tech and very expensive man-pad missile launchers by the military industrial complex. Huge cargoes of weapons being sent to the Ukraine like a present from the West. Ballistical jackets, drones, tanks, airplanes, and other high-tech goodies. Here, I quote for you. Biden says US is answering Zelensky's plea and warns of long and difficult battle. Raytheon and Lockheed, my donors, need that long and difficult battle to rake in trillions of defense dollars. The military-industrial complex. War is business. The Ukraine even responds with unthankfulness, saying that the West, the NATO, and the European community don't help the Ukraine enough. Zelensky even said that the NATO is weak and confused. He says it's weak, it's all bent like. Why? Because our leaders want more war from both sides. From the Russian side, from the NATO side, from the Zelensky side. They want war. Wow, the Ukraine gets all the help in the world and then spits back at the helping hand. And look, the military-industrial complex, they even make t-shirts saying, well, this guy, Zelensky, said, I need ammunition and not a ride out. So who likes him saying this? that he needs more ammunition? Well, these ones, of course, the military-industrial complex. This is Octagon, and they want perpetual war. It's going on for 2000 years. The business of war. Octagon. Swaziland, where all the money goes. War. Good for few, bad for most. Red wine for few, red blood for most. War is good business for the military-industrial complex. Therefore, saying all over the news all the time, Ukraine needs more weapons. This is Kuleba, the Ukraine foreign minister. The military-industrial complex is happy with this guy. Yeah. Ukraine needs more weapons. If you wonder why the taxes are gonna raise soon, well, you know why. Like in any business, and it is a business, they come with excellent selling arguments. And the same foreign minister even says on what Ukraine needs, weapons and sanctions, and the rest will be done by the Ukraine. This is a selling argument. Give us the weapons and we'll do the rest. It's business. This is a selling argument. It's business. The military-industrial complex. It's pure business. The MANPAD goodie for the Ukraine is short for Man Portable Air Defense. PAD standing for Portable Air Defense. Operated by one man. MANPAD. ATGM means anti-tank guided missile. So I quote, biggest batch ever delivered. US delivers 20,000 ATGM and MANPADs. The military-industrial complex is happy. The West's MANPADs versus Putin's warplanes. But it should stand here, in fact, the military-industrial complex's MANPADs. So, who's gonna pay for all the military-industrial complex high-tech presence to the Ukraine, huh? So, who's gonna pay for all the military-industrial complex high-tech presence to the Ukraine, huh? So these statistics are from an article from last year, 2021. And last year they were already planning the rise of the taxes in England. So this is from England, Britain, with about 300%, going up from 1 billion to 2.5. So there's a rise of 250%, or the rise is actually 150% more. And the rise was supposed to be coming in March 2022. So this means they knew that the Ukraine war was coming. They planned it. You can check it out yourself, just follow the money. And you get to all their crimes, The March 2022 plans is a rise of 150% more in taxes in the UK. And I guess the US is the same, and the rest of the NATO countries, it's the same. They want to bleed us out, you know, to get the money into the military-industrial complex. It was all prepared from both sides. From the Russian side, as I already explained to you in my videos, and also from the NATO side and the EC, European Community side. Because the enemy is in both sides. It's the enemy within. You all understand what this means, right? It means you're screwed. So also here, it's better to have a screw loose in your brain so you can get out of the binary system and understand what's going on instead of paying taxes to the nobility. So the taxes are going to rise again with the government's military-industrial complex smiling and getting more money for Pharaoh's offspring, while Europeans bleed again. Then the Latin letter Z, or Z in American, on the Russian tanks, trucks and armored cars, while in fact there is no Z written that way in the Russian Cyrillic alphabet. And here it even says here square and compass. The higher officers, or maybe all the officers, they're all part of the Octagon and the Freemasons, of course. They are in military orders and medieval military orders and such, especially generals and colonels and such. So here's the square, you see, and the circle is the compass. You can make a circle with a compass, and it even says here the concept of 3 in the form of a pyramid. And the square is the concept of 4. It has 4 corners. So it says the concept of 4 and the concept of 3. It says square and compass together with this one here, which I'm going to explain to you what it means. So these people know exactly what they're doing. I mean, why else would they put this here and this here? Well, I'm going to tell you. Well, it's half of a Nazi Templar swastika, as I've shown you in this video here, only unfortunately mirrored, but it's the same. It's just coincidental that it is mirrored. I could have just as well have done it from the other side. It doesn't make any difference, as people say, that the swastika turns right or left. It's nonsense, really. And here's the video. From Pyramid to Templars Cross to Swastika on the same channel, Gure. Then, where is the other half of the supposedly Z swastika? Well, here it is. If you take the N from NATO and superpose it on the not very Russian Z, you get a Nazi swastika without even needing to turn it. It just nicely fits in. You see, here is the famous or the infamous Z on the Russian armor. And their adversary of these ones here, of the Zorro here, it's these ones here, the N. And by coincidence, because these guys are completely nuts with symbols, they just can't resist it. You know, there's something evil pushing behind it that needs them to put these symbols there, like a dog pissing on a corner. This is my territory, you know. So if you superpose the Russian N, or let's say we start with the N, and we take with the Z, and we take the N, you superpose it here, like it is, like this, tuck, 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 on the Z, well, you get a swastika, just as I filmed you in that video. Only by accident, I took the other way around. I could have just as well, there was 50% chance because it's really the same thing. I could have done it like this here, with this diagonal instead of using this diagonal, which is the same. On the other way, you take the Z, you superpose it here on the N, and you get the Z, tuck, tuck here, and you get a bloody swastika, eh? And they know it. So this means on both sides, you got Nazis. That's what it means. And it means they help each other. They are together. I mean, that's what I've been telling you. It's the same. Zelensky, Putin, they're all Nazis. The NATO, all the politicians, it's all out of the Nazi Templars of the Octagon. Well, here it is. You take the Z and you pull it over the N. The Russians, together with the NATO, or like say Putin, because it's not the Russian people, Putin, the Teutonic Knight, with his base in Swaziland, together with NATO and Zelensky, you get this. Here you got Putin on the Russian armor, like here, the Z, the Zorro. Here you got NATO. You might say this is far-fetched, but I've shown you so many things, it's always the same. These people are led by demons. It's stronger than themselves. They have to do it. They can't do it otherwise, because they've got this allegiance with evil. So they must do it. They get their orders from the other side or from evil. It's stronger than them, and they just want to have all the earthly pleasures and power, so they must do it. So the Z and the N are complementary. Putin and the NATO complement each other, like man and woman, the two sides of a coin, or the two wings of the same bird. Birdie, birdie, remember? The Ukraine war wouldn't even be possible without the enemy within on both sides. It wouldn't be working. As they are working together, the both sides, towards their combined goal of the Nazi swastika, standing for a worldwide Nazi dictatorship. You remember? Ein Volk, ein Führer, ein Reich. One people, one leader, one empire. You remember, huh? Well, this is it. They are complementary. The Z, superpose it on the N, and you get this. Look, it's all over the internet. They even say things like this here. Well, I'm not going to pronounce it, I don't like swearing anyway, but I would get problems with my channel. Look, here's the Z in a square, half of the swastika, and here the other guy has, Zelensky, he has also on a green t-shirt, he has a Templars cross. We're being fooled, people. We're being fooled by them. Look, it's all over. The Z, you can buy it on Amazon. Well, they only think about making money. You can find it here, in the streets of in Russia, like here. That's amazing here as well. So, so this, to influence the people, to hype them up, like make them fanatic, Yeah. Oh, look at it. Wouldn't you like to be one of these, eh? Look at our strong arms and all that. Be Zorro. And they don't even know what it means, eh? It's all over. I hear one from the other side. Humanity, humanity. Oh man, these are the sheeple, you know. It's for the TV warriors, you know. All this, you know, the TV warriors, you know, go do bodybuilding and drive around in a nice pickup and put on some heavy t-shirts, both in Russia and in other places, and play the strong man. But they all fear death. Like the Swissies, you know, they wanted to play with me, you know, and put 3 guns on my head. They wanted to play with death, you know, and think how strong they are. But the ones who did that, you know, they fear death. And I will confront them in a real way, give them the real deal, see how they're going to be shaking. Here you can see Putin together with a guy who's called Dmitry Utkin, who is a leader in the Nazi Wagner group of those mercenaries and private mercenary group, private army of the Teutonic Mr. Putin. And here we can see the Wagner group officer Dmitry Utkin posing for the American Playboy magazine or something. What do we see? The tattoos here. Here he's got the SS sign, and here some officers' sign of the SS. What is it? Colonel or something, or general maybe. And here is the eagle, the Nazi eagle, which is not an eagle but a falcon. Only a falcon stays up in the air like this. An eagle doesn't, with the swastika and all on it. So this means we have the Nazis on both sides. Half of them are with the Ruskies, with the Wagner group and their Z symbol, and the other half are in the NATO with its complementary N symbol, complementary to the Z, in order to make the swastika. And the other half are with Zelensky, president of the Ukraine, with a Templar cross on his chest where the heart is, which is the same symbol the Nazis had around their neck, calling it the Iron Cross. So this is the symbol of the Nazi Templars. And we all know the NATO was founded by Nazi Wehrmacht and SS generals like Nazi General Hans Speidel, Nazi General Adolf Heusinger, Nazi General Reinhard Gehlen, and many others becoming high NATO generals. I read it for you. These NATO generals had unusual backgrounds. They served in the Third Reich. Amid the Cold War, 2 German generals, well, there were more, were among the few NATO commanders with direct experience fighting the Soviets, not to mention the Allies. So they fought the Allies as well, and they became NATO generals. Eh? This is the Third Reich. This is the enemy within. Here you can read about it. Well, there's a lot more. There he is with the Hans Speidel, a Nazi general, and he has the same cross as Zelensky, because it's all the same. The Nazis won the war. And there's much more, also politicians and all this. I already mentioned a couple of them, you know. Adolf Heusinger, yeah, with the swastika here and the falcon on his breast here. And there are many more. Now here he is again, Adolf Heusinger. Well, just before you saw him in a Nazi uniform, Now you can see him here in a NATO uniform. I mean, it's almost the same. Even the word, NATO, Nazi, Nazi, NATO. It's almost the same symbol. And I've showed you the origins in my film with these symbols like here. I can make with these things here, I can make a swastika. I've shown you this. Remember? This, I just re-uploaded it a couple of days ago. NATO. It's the NATO. NATO, Nazi. It's the same. And then this is just, I'm just showing you too. I mean, this film is not really about that. And see, NATO uniform with the head of a Nazi on it. Nothing changed, people. It's still the same. The Nazis won the war. And they're on all sides. Well, here you can see him again. He's Heusinger, front left. So here he is, standing together with Adolf here. And he became a general in the NATO. Can you believe it? You know, they all got the Zelensky crosses here and the Templar crosses here. Now here he is. Nothing changed, you know. That's why the N and the Z, it makes a swastika, because it's on both sides. Here you see Heusinger with Robert McNamara. The guy who bombed the hell out of killing 3 million Vietnamese. All together, you know, a whole bunch of Nazis. Yeah, he became Hans Speidel. He became the NATO general. It's a shame, everything, you know. Wakey, wakey, people. Here's the other NATO general, Hans Speidel. Here you can see him in his Nazi uniform. There you go, with the swastika and the birdie. And probably more pictures. He became a NATO general. I mean, you have to take orders from this guy, you know. Can you imagine? You know, here's Speidel together with Erich von Manstein. I suppose this is Speidel. My grandfather was killing these guys, you know, or he was fighting these guys, and he died because of these sort of guys in 1942. And then they all became NATO generals, you know, like in the Allied army, so to speak. Yeah. Here's Speidel with Erwin Rommel. So I guess this is Speidel, and this is the Rommel. The desert fox, as they call them, who got beaten by the SS. I already explained it to you. And here he's Adolf Heusinger. He swapped the uniform, and he's standing here in NATO uniforms. The same guy. Together with the other one, Heusinger. Yeah. We're still stuck with the same ones, you know. They just swap uniforms. It's amazing, everything. Everything is a lie. Everything is a lie. Here's another charming dude. Here you can see him. It was Colonel Reinhard Gehlen, and together with Alan Dulles and the CIA, they mounted the Gehlen organization. You know, spying on Germans. You know, that there were still the German people. They were still like ordered around by Nazis. He became the head of the German intelligence office, or called the BND, Bundesnachrichtendienst, near Munich, working for the CIA. I mean, we all know what the CIA does, eh? There he is. Oh, he was a major general, Reinhard Gehlen, Nazi general. It says Nazi general. He was not a colonel. Yeah. Alan Dulles, they're all in it, William Donovan, the Paperclip project. They call it the Paperclip project because the files were so big, they had to put paper clips on it. And real big ones, not the normal ones, the big ones. The ones that can hold a horse. But it didn't hold the Nazis back, eh? So here's the Gehlen organization, and it became the Bundesnachrichtendienst, the Federal Intelligence Service. Oh, what a service, eh? It's more like a service in tennis, make a giving a big hit, like. And they are in Munich, And what happened in Munich a couple of years later was the Palestinians. There was the Olympic Games, and some Palestinians, they murdered about 10 jaywalkers or more, sportsmen, and they're also in Munich. Both the Olympic Games were in Munich, and the Federal Intelligence Service, the Bundesnachrichtendienst, in Pullach. And I mean, why didn't they do their work? I mean, they didn't. They knew it. Of course, they knew it. They were living next door. Of course, they knew it. It had to come like this, in order to get more money and more, so fight terrorism or whatever. It's always something about like this. They call it the org. Maybe it's more orcs, the orcs with a C. The org, the Gehlen organization. And that was far before the internet. They already called it the org, .org, the .orgs. And yeah, they should have known it about the Palestinian attack, who just climbed over the fence with all their weapons and everything. They knew it, people. These Nazis, they knew it. I mean, it was just a couple of jaywalkers. Who cares, That's how Nazis think, eh? The Templar Nazis, the Nazi Templars, still the same bloody thing. And here's another one. There are loads of stories like this. This is the U.S. Army Captain Larry Thorne. The American authorities, they just changed his name. He was even in the Green Beret and Special Forces, killing people in Vietnam. The guy just loved killing, in Special Forces. He's in the German Special Forces, the SS, a Nazi. Here he has again another uniform. The guy just loved killing. So the US authorities said, well, come on, let's take him, It's all paperclip stuff, right? US Captain Larry Thorne. He had a different name, of course, before. When he was wearing this uniform, he had a different name. You see the same, he was an officer, the same three things like the Wagner guy had. Exactly the same, with this one here and the other one here. So this is just another example how a Nazi officer, he became a NATO officer. The Nazi, the Nazo, the NATO. The NATO is a Nazi organization. All the proofs are there, and many, many more. Now, watch this symbol very well, because it's coming back in a minute. It's the symbol of the V of the Nazi Templars. Even Churchill was doing this, V for victory. And it's called the honor chevron for the old guard. Ehrenwinkel der alten Kämpfer. So the honor chevron for the old guard was a Nazi party decoration worn by members of the SS. The silver chevron, it's a French word, which was worn on the upper sleeve. It's a French word because the nobility, they speak French, right? On the upper sleeve on the right arm was authorized by Adolf Hitler in February 1934. All members of the SS who had joined the Allgemeine SS, the NSDAP or any other party organization prior to January 30th, 1933 were entitled to wear the insignia, etc. The rest you can read yourself. So it's an important symbol. You see here they all have it. You know, it doesn't mean corporal, you know, because they're all generals here. There's Himmler, Reinhard Heydrich, and the rest of the gangsters. They all have it. So it means they're part of the honorary guard. And so remember this very well, because it's coming back in a minute. I'm going to show it to you in order to prove that on both sides, Russian, Ukrainian, NATO, they're all Nazis, and they're just grinding the people in between who are bleeding. So it's called the Old Guard, Ehrenwinkel der alten Kämpfer. That was from 1923. I think this is Ernst Röhm, isn't it? It must be. It doesn't say. And when in Munich, again in Munich, there was the uprising with Adolf Hitler, when Hermann Göring, he got shot in the stomach. So after World War I, 1918, all the nationalist stuff had started really, you know, and they were the alten Kämpfer, the old, it means the old fighters. So there it is again, all over the Nazi Templar V, which we can see on the Russian armor all over now, together with the Z in this Russian-Ukrainian war. And as I've been telling you for many years now, the Nazis won the war. And we're still in the Third Reich with Templar V's on Russian armor, which you can see here on helicopters and here on armored cars and trucks. And well, there was also a Russian paperclip. They also went to Russia, these Nazis, after the war. You know, Putin's pals and all that. That's where he comes from. You know, it's all Teutonic Knights. Here you see Heinrich Himmler with the V sign of the old fighters, alte Kämpfer. So this is not a corporal rank symbol here, because this was the head of the SS. So he was not a corporal, right? Like in the American army or English army, this is like corporal. American army is the other way around, but it's all Templar symbols. So he was a Obergruppenführer, which means a general. So this doesn't mean corporal. It means alte Kämpfer, as I just explained to you. And these Octagon Nazi Templars are just crazy with their secret symbols. And they just can't resist this sick, uncontrollable inner drive to use these secret symbols and transmit them amongst each other. Stop fighting each other, dumb people. You must all unite and fight your leaders of this terrible enemy within. You all see the octagon here, and here of course the swastika with the falcon. So next to their regular armies from both sides, and both under Nazi Templar control, and next to the various armies within these regular armies, like the Azov, Wagner, Kadyrovtsi, Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and others, there's also the octagon of the Nazi Templars, who swap uniforms and put on Russian uniforms to shell and kill Ukrainians, and who after that do it the other way around swap uniform and put on Ukrainian uniforms to shell and kill the ethno-Russians of the Donbass. It's a two-faced enemy, the enemy within, who kill both parties, both sides of the conflict, so the various peoples will hate each other, which already is the case. Mission accomplished. All the money for the military-industrial complex and the Octagon enemy within pass through their Swiss Nazi Templar banks. Here it says on a Swiss t-shirt, "It's in my DNA," with a fingerprint and a Swiss flag. And still many people say that this is not the fault of the ordinary Swiss people, and that's only the elite masters. Here you can see another popular Swiss t-shirt where it says SS for Swiss, and this is the topographic of Switzerland. Here's Italy, here's Germany, here's France, here's Austria. Proud to be Swiss SS in the Templars colors red and white. So I lived 20 years in Swaziland, where the ordinary Swissies hated me and aggressed me with corrupt Swiss cops like Hans Rudi Kühni lying stuff together, only because I was telling the truth about the Swiss banks. I tell you that those whom you call the ordinary Swiss, they love their Swiss banks, of which they're proud of. And they'll do anything to protect these Swiss Nazi Templar banks, and even terrorize, lie, and commit murder for their masters. And here it says on the cup, "I'm not perfect, but I'm Swiss." And that's kind of the same thing. Now, if you think this is some sort of particular Swiss humor, well, it is in a way, but it's not just humor. They really believe this, and they present it to others under like the image of a joke, which is not a joke. I mean, what's funny about this, hey? They really believe this, that they're better than the rest of the world, because they never had a real good spanking, 2 world wars, they were not in it, never in any war, They never had a good punishment, so they really think they're better than the rest of humanity. And I lived there for 20 years, and I can tell you, they really believe this, that being Swiss is something supernatural and like the Übermensch, like this Nazi idea of being the superior race or something, The Swissies are the product of the 13th century Knights Templar Lebensborn, Hitler Youth, Gadirovtsi, forced breeding program of small children, with which the Knights Templars started right away when founding their base in the Alps on August 1st, 1291. It is known that the Knights Templars raped little boys in order to subdue them into the order. Just as we see the Freemason initiated political and aristocratic elite doing today. Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew, Jimmy Savile, the rest of these perverts, and here in Switzerland having children slaves until 1989, which you can see in this film here. in my channel Gatsefrat. Or here in this documentary Switzerland's Stolen Generation on SBS Dateline. And this is very much related to what's happening in the Ukraine, what Putin is doing with the Kadyrovsky Lebensborn. There were little children who were kidnapped during the Chechen wars, just as Ukrainian children are disappearing and being kidnapped by the Russians. And the Swiss did this until 1989, as you can see here in the picture. The children had to do forced labor and they were kidnapped away from their parents. And the Swiss are still doing this today, actually. But now they only take them away from their fathers, mostly. And it's the same thing. It's a Templar technique, and it is related to the Ukraine wars and the Teutonic Putin. By knowing all this, what the Swissies did to little children and still do, and which every Swiss person knows, they dare to make cops like this. Legends are born in Switzerland. How dare you? So this is Baldur von Schirach here, this one. And he was the leader of the Hitler Youth. You know, and he was an aristocrat with the von in between his names. And with his hand on the boy's ass and almost sitting on the boy here. Oh. So if I look at Baldur von Schirach, the head of the Hitler Youth and an aristocrat, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that many little Hitler Youth boys got raped by these Nazi Templar perverts in order to spread the genes of violence into the boys' DNA, making them ready for genocide and company. And when I see this, with his hand here and, making little Nazi Templars out of normal children, I have to think of Kadyrovtsi, the Azov. There are a lot of children running around there as well. And all the Ukrainian children disappearing, being kidnapped by the Russians. History is repeating itself all the time. This is the Seagate, I can't pronounce this word here, Big Pharma, Switzerland and Organized Crime video by the Wolf Clan Media on Brighteon. And I found something very interesting in there at 48:48. 48 minutes, 48 seconds. So now here it is at 48:48. Here it says Interpol. And the video, the Seagate, Big Pharma, Switzerland, Organized Crime by the Wolf Clan Media. And wow, look at this. So I guess when I found these here, called Interpol, in the Wolf Clan Media film on the Swiss gangsters, well, I'm sure Interpol won't do anything against the real evil creeping up upon our children from behind, but rather protect the evil of the initiated elite masters and their Swiss base, because in their Interpol head office in Lyon in France, in the fancy glass structure of the building, in a grand architectural way by and for the elite and the powerful of this world, they have a huge square and compass, protected by the octagon on top, covering it up, meaning that their military wing, the octagon, protects the inner circle of the Freemasons with their square and compass. So you see here, this is octagonal, this is the outer circle. I'll show you more pictures where you can see it's completely octagonal. So this is the outer ring, which is protecting the inner circle. This big circle here stands for the compass, because with a compass you can draw a circle. And in the crosshair you got like 4 squares. And here also 4 squares every time. Here 4 squares, and I got it 3 times here. 4 times, 3 times. It's a concept of 3 and 4. So it says in the middle square and compass, which is the inner circle being protected by the outer circle, which is the military wing of the octagon, which is the top of the Nazi Templars. You remember in that video I once filmed, and I filmed it in a plastic cake form. I try and find it for you. So it's everywhere, see? It's everywhere. So I wonder if the Wolf Clan media have seen this. So let's get your teeth out, Wolf Clan media. The Wolf Clan, we need the Wolf Clan against this here. So here it is again. I found it. I uploaded this like 3 days ago, and I thought, I saw it somewhere. So it has the same things, the circle here. This is a hexagon, here another circle. Here's the octagon, and all around it here is the square. You can't see it, the whole. But I made this 10 years ago, and I've got a better video on my channel, Gatsenfrats. So it's the same thing as in the Interpol roof, but it has a different story in a different way. So the square is all around it is a square, and the square, that's us, the people. And the octagon has to, the military ring, which is here in the middle, has to protect the inner ring, the hexagon, which stands here. This is the hexagon, 6 corners, which usually stands for the square and compass, because you can nicely fit it in here. And all in the middle is another circle, which stands for the concept of 3, which is them, our masters, which is the side of a pyramid, which is the old world order here, which is absolutely the middle circle. And then you get the next circle, which is the square and compass, which is the Freemasons, the politicians. It's divided by another circle. And then comes the next circle, which is the military circle, the octagon. Then we get to another circle to separate it. And the octagon military circle, like the police and the army, they have to protect the concept of 3 and the Freemasons, the inner circle, the politicians and the one in power, from the square, which is the people. We all the way down at the pyramid, the hierarchy of the pyramid, where the grass is. Well, where the grass used to be. Now it's all sand in the desert, eh? So I uploaded this April the 11th, it's just 3 days ago or 4 days ago, on the same channel, and here's the title. And all the way down on the earth, where it's all happening, right, there's another octagon representing the military Interpol, who are part of the Nazi Templar octagon. So here you see the roof again, and here's another octagon. This means to say that on the ground they have the very visible octagon saying Interpol, meaning that Interpol is part of the octagon. And the colors are white for the per head, White House, New World Order, horizontal rule, and blue for the war, or the uniforms of the Blue Gang. All together with the tools of the pharaonic goddess Ma'at in it, her sword and the pair of scales. Here you see the sword, the pair of scales here. Here's blue for the war crown. It's all white around it for the New World Order, the White House, the bare head. Here you can see Obama here walking. And all around it, it's also octagonal, you see. It's so important for them. It's all octagon. Interpol is octagon. That's what it says. Here it says Interpol, and I don't know what this means. PC, police corps or something. And for the ancient Egyptians, Ma'at means the order of things, the order of the universe, but also the Freemason order out of chaos, ordo ab chaos. Here it says Ma'at, order, and justice. So later on in history, she became the sword. She became the Lady Justice with the sword and the pair of scales. The balance, the pair of scales. So the Egyptian Ma'at, you see the sun, Amun-Ra, behind it. The Egyptian Ma'at became the Greek goddess Themis, or Themis, like the river, the Thames, it's the same thing. And here is the balance, what they talk about. So nowadays, she is Lady Justice with a sword, and here the pair of scales, and she is blindfolded. Today as well, Lady Justice is blindfolded, and it is really blind justice what we see in the Western world. It's nothing to do with real justice. It's blind justice for the elite. Here she is, Themis, or Lady Justice, and the river, blind justice, blind pharaonic justice. They don't even see us. And in French, the river Thames, it's called La Tamise, like Themis, Tamise, same origin. So here you can see the sword of Themis, the goddess, and here's the pair of scales of Ma'at and also Themis in the pharaonic colors, blue and white. Maybe this used to be red, or it should be red. Then it's absolutely complete. Maybe like walking over it, it gave another color. So the whole thing is by our masters who are not from Europe. It's all pharaonic. They moved over to Greece and then to Rome. It's all the same power, like the Lady Justice. It's from Rome, which we have today, blindfolded, blind justice, which is terror. It's absolute terror. And that means blindfolded, blind justice. They don't think, they don't have to think, it's all justice matters are all in the advantage of the master. So that's why she can be blindfolded. You see, we always lose. The people is always the loser in the whole thing. So we're being ruled by the masters, which is in the colors, it's in the symbols, it's in the octagon, it's all over. Pharaohs are ruling over us. So over the earthly Interpol octagon, which you can see here, floats the square and compass in the roof, as the invisible powers seeing to it. And over that all is the invisible octagon of the Nazi Templars, where it all derives from, both Freemasons and Interpol. So this is from the top, maybe by a satellite or a drone. So on the top, over that all, is the roof, which is also octagonal. And then the whole ground is in a circle for the compass, with again a little square here, there's a little square here, and a circle here. It says square and compass, well, all over. Here you can see the little squares in it here, and the big octagon, which we just saw in glass as well. And here's another octagon, the whole thing in a circle. They just can't get enough of it, eh? So I showed one more time what I've been explaining to you. So on the ground, there's the octagon, which we can see, a military order with guns and all sort of goodies and drones. in another octagon here. You got 3 stairs here, because the hierarchy, you know, where it's going up, that's them, you know, the concept of 3 must be there, must be 3 therefore. And so this is the visible octagon with octagon badges and all that. And over that, you got the square and compass, which I explained to you. And over that, which I've just shown you, in the roof, there's another octagon. And in glass as well, on the roof. It is the roof. And that is the original octagon, the invisible octagon of the Nazi Templars and their base Swaziland, who rule over the Freemasons, the square and compass. And these Freemasons, they rule, of course, over the military order, the octagon. So there are in fact 2 octagons. You know, but it is one and the same, you know, but in their configuration here, you know, they present it like this, you know. It's also like a spider's web, you know, you get a whole spider's web here on the ground, eh? And in the sky here, it also has the colors blue and white, just as down there on the floor. You know, it's like projecting what's in the sky on the floor. And it looks like a whole, the crosshairs of a scope, where they're aiming at us, of course. That's why the color blue, which is also down here at the floor. They are aiming at us with these crosshairs. That's what it means. You know, through the white, the New World Order, the White House, and blue for the war. And it's not only in the sky, it's also down here. The crosshairs aiming at us, the pharaonic crosshairs. And Interpol is, of course, an organization by and for the elite to control the slaves. Here it says Interpol Global Financial Crime Task Force, and here the logo of Interpol. Well, I've never ever seen them do something against Switzerland, their Swiss banks, or their Swiss pharmaceutical companies. Never, ever. And I dropped 3 complaints at the French court against Switzerland's and their banks and everything. I never heard anything anymore of it. And that was in the same country where this Interpol is. It's all a joke. Interpol protects, of course, the mafia. Interpol protects the nobility and its various rapists, like Prince Andrew and others. Interpol protects the corrupt politicians, and Interpol will always protect the motherland of the Octagon, Swaziland, with its powerful Nazi Templar banks and its highly criminal Swiss pharmaceutical companies. And here you can see Interpol organizing an international forum called Technology Against Crime, with a lot of circles in the logo representing the compass, the square in the letter T, a pyramid in the A, and again the colors blue and white. Blue for the war and white for the New World Order Perhet White House. So here you can see all the circles standing for the compass. The square is here. And here's a pyramid with a Templar V as well. The upside down, which we also see. And here are the ones who are organizing it. Technology Against Crime. They use the minor slaves' crimes as a pretext for total control, and its 666 chip under the banner of Technology Against Crime. Lion, where the Interpol is, means lion, the symbol of the nobility, and Lyon is the old capital of France under the Roman Empire. So here you can see the coat of arms of Lyon. there are 3 times for the concept of 3, fleur de lis, and blue for the war. And here are the other 2 pharaonic crowns, red and white. And here's the lion. There never were any lions in Europe. So under the Roman occupation, they called it Lugdunum, Lyon, and that was the capital of the Gaul. The Celts, the Celts in France, they were called the Gaul, and the capital, the Roman capital of France, was Lyon. So it has a lot of history, and it's completely in the middle of France. So the Interpol, they didn't search the place where to put themselves by accident. You know. They are everywhere. Like I filmed this here on a house next door in the village I had been staying this winter. I got at first attracted by the owl, representing the Roman goddess Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, usually depicted with the owl. Therefore, another symbol the Freemasons use. When I looked further, like here, it said Venus. It says Venus. Another Roman goddess and a representation of the Egyptian Isis. Therefore, there's the bird for her son Horus, the falcon, depicted twice in order to show the bird with one eye missing, as Horus had lost one eye. Then there's a long horizontal line for the horizontal rule of the New World Order, with a little vertical arrow on this timeline representing the old feudal vertical rule back in time. And at the end is the sea, probably standing for the Roman sea, meaning 100 years for this timeline. Underneath the timeline, it says I and B, the letters I and B, for the 3 Masonic pillars Yashin and Boaz, and in Latin the J was written as an I. In the middle of the symbolism is the octagon, standing for 1743 on the timeline, because the sign was made in 1843 at the end of the timeline. So here it says 1843, which is here at this, in this period. C is 100 years until here. So we get here in 1743. So what happened in 1743? After this, we get another 100 years in 1643. So what happened here? I'm going to explain that to you. Here's I and B for Yashin and Boaz. Here's the octagon, what it's all about. Here it says Venus, and here it says the bird. It shows the falcon here with the eye missing, and here there's the eye. So why is that? Why does it have the eye here and not the eye here? Well, because Horus, he had one eye missing. He lost it in a battle with Set, or Set on, Satan. So in a little village, you know, they're everywhere. You find things like this. You don't even have to go to big towns like Lyon, and where the Interpol is, and Paris. No, it's even in little villages. They're everywhere. So here is 1743 in France. It says in French here, but that doesn't matter really. So let's have a look what happened in 1743. So what happened in Alsace, where the clay table is at, in 1743? where the Octagon is at? Well, on September the 13th, there was the Treaty of Worms, when Alsace was given back to France. Here it says, Le 13 septembre, well it says the 13th of September, the Treaty of Worms between Austria, Great Britain, Saxony, Hanover and the Piedmont. They gave back Alsace, Lorraine and Les Trois-Évêchés to France. So Alsace went back to France, and this clay table stands in Alsace, and it's exactly where the Octagon is in 1743. So here you can see the Treaty of Worms in 1743, and it was signed on September the 13th, 1743. So this in Alsace, it's a very important date, and it's all related to the Octagon. And that's why this date says exactly at the clay table where the Octagon is. Because 100 years before that, during the 30-Year War, the Swiss mercenaries of Octagon, they murdered the entire population of not yet Alsace, but of the Upper Rhine and the Lower Rhine, as it's called in French. 95% of the population were murdered by the Octagon. And I fear the people of the clay table, they know it, they are initiated, you know. On top of that, the Treaty of Worms happened on a Friday the 13th in 1743, which you can see here. Friday, September the 13th, 1743. And Friday the 13th is very much related to the Octagon of the Nazi Templars, who were rounded up on that date by the French king. I read it for you here. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, the Templar Grand Master Jacques de Molay was arrested. King Philip IV of France ended the Knights Templars on Friday the 13th. And ever since, Friday the 13th has been known as a bad luck day. Here's the Knights Templar cross. Therefore, here the Octagon for Friday the 13th of September 1743 on the timeline. So here the Octagon, it stands for 1743, because this C, 100 years from here to here, the C stands for 1843, the end of the timeline. So this is Friday the 13th, and Friday the 13th is Octagon. So from 1843, where the C for 100 years is, to the Octagon is 100 years on the timeline. Then back 1643, from the Octagon to the downward arrow, arriving in the middle of the 30-Year War, from 1618 to 1648, when Swiss mercenaries butchered 95% of the original population of the non-Alsatian Alsace. So from here to here, it's another 100 years. So from Friday the 13th, 1743 till here, we arrive in the middle of the 30-Year War, which is also very important for this region. So we arrive in 1643. So it's 2 times 100 from 1843 minus 200, you get 1643. And I'll tell you what happened then. And exactly in 1643, the French Marshal Viscount de Turenne finally arrived in Alsace, but it was too late, as everybody had already been murdered by the Swiss mercenaries. So here you can see the Viscount of Turenne, there he is, and I'll show you that the timeline here. Here's the coat of arms. It's quite interesting. Of course, there are the 3 dots here, which you also just saw on a Russian tank. You know, the concept of 3, like this, or maybe the other way around. A lot of fleur-de-lis. How many are there? There are 8. Castle, of course, the crown. Turenne. And so Marshal of France. Here, he was the Marshal of France. And here it says, Turenne began campaigning in June 1644, crossing the river Rhine at Breisach. So I am at the river Rhine here. And so 1643, he was here where in Alsace, at this place where the clay table is, and he slept in the village, which I already showed you in a video, where the Pope Leon, where he was born, and he was also the Pope Leon. He was the son of a duke. So if you look at the timeline again, it really matches perfectly, 1643, and then 100 years later you get to the Octagon in 1743, Friday the 13th, and then at the end 1843. It matches completely with the timeline on that clay table. It's amazing. So there is Turenne. There's a lot of other aristocrats. There he is, Turenne, the Viscount of Turenne. And in fact, right next to the very interesting clay table is La Butte de Turenne, the hill of Turenne, which I filmed at the end of this video here about Régine's return to the source of life. And Régine and family live 100 meters from the fascinating clay table with the Octagon timeline. So here you can see La Butte de Turenne. There's even a shield here somewhere on this side here, who was here in 1643, and he slept in the village of Egisheim, where I filmed the Pope Leon, which I'm going to show in a video after. And here's the title, The Source of Souls, Well of Life, Place of the Book of Life, on my channel, Gure. So about the near-death experience of Régine in Alsace. And here, La Butte de Turenne, the Viscount of Turenne of 1643, the beginning of the timeline. I guess the Octagon Interpol of the Lions town are not going to investigate the crimes around the Octagon timetable, because it's all part of the same pharaonic gang with its crosshairs aimed at humanity. I'll turn the crosshairs back on you, Swissy, and your neutral crime syndicate. Hey, Swissy?